Welcome back to this episode of It's Called Football, second episode. I'm Jerry Walker, and alongside me, as always, is Will Scott. Will, before we get into some of this exciting Premier League action, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I won a lot of money on poker last night, so I'm feeling pretty
Oh,
pretty buzzed.
you played some online poker then, or?
No, I played with a few of my friends, and I for the first time in a few weeks I actually went up big, which was quite a nice
Oh,
feeling.
oh yeah, it's a great feeling. Anytime you're winning money doing something like
Yeah,
poker, even sports betting,
yeah.
it's a good time. I know. Do you do much sports betting at all in Arizona?
Well,
Or?
I'm not allowed to, so the only
Oh,
time I can do it is
true.
going to the actual FanDuel sportsbook. So I've occasionally put a few Akis on, but
Yeah, no,
I'm
that's
not
fair.
like it's a lot of effort. You have to take out money, and you have to walk
It's
all the
just a,
way to,
it's a
you know,
process.
yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Just
It
need
can
a
be.
social security number,
Yeah, that's true. I guess
and I
being
can do
from
it.
abroad, you can't really
Yeah,
do that too much. So,
yeah,
oh well, we'll guess we'll
yeah,
skip out on that then. But
yeah.
no, we'll hop into some of this Premier League action. We had one match midweek, top of the table clash between Arsenal and Man City. We touched a little bit on this in our daily show that was put on Vendetta Sports Media's YouTube page yesterday. So if you want to get more in depth stuff on our top discussion of that, check that out for sure. But as far as that goes, Man City win 3-1. It was kind of a sloppy-ish match from the Arsenal standpoint, in my opinion. Some defensive errors led to Man City's goal-scoring opportunities. What do you think of that match?
Yeah, as I said, Arsenal played really well through City's press. City were um, they dragged them around really well. Bernardo was struggling on the left, and there were times where he got caught off with the offside trap as well because just wasn't used to it. And it just wasn't. I think Pep even admitted after the game, I tried something new and it just didn't work. Um, and that's why he's a bold fraud. Um, but he's figured it out 60 minutes in, put Akanji on, put Mahrez up front. The pressing improved. The team looked a lot more cohesive. Nathan Ake was able to handle Saka a lot better than Bernardo Silva was for obvious reasons. A lot of the time they had to double Saka, move Ake over, and Ruben Diaz was left one-on-one with Nketiah. And Nketiah had a few good chances in the first half. Maybe he should put away one of them. I think City's tactical tweak really worked, and Arsenal just weren't cutthroat enough. Um, they scored, a pen, which was, in fairness, at first it looked a bit questionable. It was probably a pen,
Yeah, I think it
but
was the right call, but it was one of those
yeah,
borderline ones that
yeah,
you understand if it goes either way. One team will be happy no matter what, other won't be.
yeah. But yeah, I think what's really exciting now is that we've got a proper title race on our hand. If Arsenal had won, I think City would have fell off. Now Arsenal haven't won a game in 3 matches. They just got, you know, at home they just lost to City by 2 goals. Their morale's going to be low. It's going to be really interesting to see how they bounce back from this. Because City are a nightmare of a club to play to go in the Premier League title race for. Any Liverpool fan can tell you they had two heartbreaks where Liverpool have been in unbelievable form, but City just don't lose. They'll be out there, they'll be creaming the likes of Nottingham Forest or Aston Villa or Wolves or any of these lot, just like 4-0, 3-0. It'll be like robotic machine like that. They'll just do it, and churn these results out. Um, and so it's going to be so much pressure, especially how young Arsenal are.
Yeah.
Um, they really need to it's going to be a really interesting test to see how mentally resilient they are.
What intrigues me the most with like this title race is Arsenal still do have a match in hand on Man City, and they are tied at 51 points. But kind
Mm,
of what you're saying, City's goal difference is 10 better than Arsenal, and we know they're just going to keep scoring and probably getting a couple of these 4-3, 4-0 match wins down
mm.
the stretch. Whereas I can see Arsenal maybe slip up once, and that might just cost them too much. Meanwhile, they do have to play each other again later in the season still, so that
But
could
what's
just be the
interesting as well
difference.
is they both have to play Liverpool.
Mm.
And now Liverpool with Luis Diaz, VVD's back for the game on this weekend. Diego Jota's back. Luis Diaz should be back sometime soon. They're going to be back to full strength soon.
Yeah.
Thiago will be back in by the time. I think he'll be back by the time they play them. That's going to be interesting. Could Liverpool play a spoiler in this title race? That's an interesting angle to think about as well.
I think they could because they
Yeah.
still even it's just like even if they get a draw against either the Arsenal or Man City, oh sorry, that could just be the difference in it in the end. And I mean, I'm
Mm,
looking at Arsenal's fixtures at the moment, and there's a stretch at the end of April, beginning of May, where they're at Man City, home to Chelsea, and at Newcastle. That
Yeah,
could really, really break their season. And then, I mean,
yeah,
you throw in Brighton after that Newcastle
yeah,
match, and that's not a guaranteed win either. So I
yeah.
think
It's
all
the
the
start
pressure
of
is on this Arsenal
yeah.
side.
Yeah, it's the start of April. They could literally decide. Liverpool play Man City at the Etihad, and then they play Arsenal at Anfield. It could really decide the season how Liverpool turn up. If they imagine if they beat both those sides out of nowhere, can you imagine how crazy that would be? United could be in the title race if that happens.
They really could. I mean, United, they're not out of it by any means. They
Yeah,
have played the
yeah,
same matches as City. I think it's probably it'll be a stretch if they get back into it.
yeah.
But they're sitting
It's a
at
stretch.
46 points, so 5 back of the 2 leaders. And
Yeah,
anything's possible, though. Unfortunately don't play Man City again, so they won't be able to
or
steal points
Arsenal.
from them. Oh, they don't play Arsenal either. So
Yeah,
but the other thing with Man U, at least just on that topic, is they're still in the EFL Cup final against Newcastle, and they're still in the FA Cup.
and
Obviously,
hopefully still the Europa League.
Europa League, which
Mm.
that could be the difference because Arsenal is no longer in any of these cups, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
Apart from I think the Europa League's the only other one they're in.
Arsenal is still in that. Oh,
And
that's right.
City's in the FA Cup as well. So
Yeah,
City,
City's still
City
FA
have
Cup
got
and
the
Champions League.
yeah,
So I'm wondering if that could play a toll into it a bit.
yeah,
Maybe they're
yeah,
focusing on winning the Champions League, which they still have never done in their history, which is kind of amazing considering the amount of money they've spent as of late. But
yeah.
it'll be an interesting thing for sure to see if that takes a
Mm.
toll on their players. As we've heard
Yeah,
Jurgen Klopp
100%.
and Pep Guardiola complain about the congestion of fixtures so much in the past.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot easier. I think Arsenal have benefited to an extent of being able to play in the Europa League instead of the Champions League this season. I think that's an underrated aspect. I'm also, I was going to say something. I also, I think as a United fan, I think if we hadn't drawn those games, if we hadn't thrown those games away against Crystal Palace, against Leeds, where we really, the Crystal Palace was a real throwaway.
Yeah.
We really took off foot off the gas. I think that Leeds game, we probably should have finished better. And we completely switched off after that Sancho equaliser. I think if those two games had gone differently, we'd be 1 point behind both of them. Then it'd be an interesting title race. And then I'd feel like we're in it. But with no Eriksen, McTominay's still kind of like we've got 3 fit midfielders. Like I don't know, I'm not sure. We're one Rashford or Casemiro injury away from being completely out and struggling to get top 4.
Agreed. It's like we saw even in the Leeds matches, Casemiro's missing out, especially on that first one. That was such a noticeable difference. Him and Ericsson alike, both of them would have. I think he would have won that match had either of them been healthy. So,
Yeah.
But that's the thing with the Premier League is you have to have this depth, which sometimes teams don't, and injuries can just come out of nowhere and cause problems and make it not quite as good as it is. But as of right now, who do you think will win the title?
I think probably City.
Yeah.
I think they'll beat Arsenal at the Etihad, and then I worry about Arsenal in the form right now. They've played 3 games in a week. If they've played a lot of games, they're going to be so mentally drained, and they have to go to play Aston Villa, and we'll touch on it later. But it's not going to be. They're going to be drained. The Brentford game especially must be so mentally draining because they really should have won that game.
Mm-hmm.
And to drop points in that manner must be so frustrating. Like the way they've just lost these games, it felt like the peak of their season almost came when they smacked Tottenham away, and they came back and showed resilience against us and to beat us. But then they lose to a really annoying Everton side. They throw points away against Brentford when they shouldn't have, and then they lose their title race at home after being the better side for 50, 60 minutes. Or maybe the first half, definitely. I think second half, City probably had the better of. It's like, it must be so mentally draining. Like playing through the champions like that, that's the lowest possessions start City have had in a Premier League game under Guardiola. Controlling the champions like that, the best team in England, arguably, and like getting smacked 3-1. It must be so like tough on the players.
Yeah, like you mentioned possession, looking at the stats, Arsenal had 64% of the possession in that match, where you never see Man City with less than 40%. It just doesn't seem like a thing that ever happens because they just find a way with Pep Guardiola. He did the same at Bayern Munich, Barcelona. They just possess that ball, pass it around so much, and then build up their chances. Whereas now it seems like they're more forcing a press, countering, and quickly getting a goal.
Yeah,
I was a little disappointed with Arsenal because the fact they only had one shot on target in that match. Not sure if that was the penalty or if they had another one. Don't know if the penalty is considered for that necessarily, but only one shot on target. That's not good enough to beat any team, especially Man City, who is now top of the league.
yeah. I think that's why I think Liverpool were a more dangerous threat to Man City. Because, like, look, Arsenal, they play in a very similar way to obviously there are differences, but they're a very similar way. But the way Liverpool was just so much more decisive and threatening. Saka is fantastic, but Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane are so threatening and dangerous, especially in transition opportunities. And the Arsenal press just as well as Liverpool press. That is,
Agreed.
I wouldn't take that away from
No.
Arsenal. But they're just so much, and they're decisive, and they reminded me, especially in that United game, they reminded me of prime Liverpool under Klopp. But Liverpool just have that cutting edge. I feel like when they were at their best, they were so decisive and like that. I don't know. That's why I think Liverpool were a tougher. It just feels like City are gonna run away with it now. I don't know. I don't want to get too caught up in narratives, but it just feels like the pendulum has completely shifted. Arsenal really lacked a cutting edge against City. They had the opportunities. They just weren't, decisive and sort of cutthroat with them.
Yeah, and like you said, that's the third straight match, or really fourth straight match, because they lost to Man City in the FA Cup as well. That they just haven't been scoring. They have two
Yeah,
goals in four matches, and that's not good enough. You're just throwing away points against the likes of Brentford and Everton for a team that, if this was Liverpool a few years ago, we would see Liverpool beat the brakes off of Everton. We'd see them find a way to get a win against Brentford, might get a draw against Man City, but instead it's a loss, a draw, and another loss to that. So it's going to be interesting. I do agree with you. I think Man City is going to be the better team, and we'll see that at the end of the season in this final stretch. But I'm just hoping that they both keep it close and it goes down to the last 2 weeks or so because
yeah,
I believe
I'd love
last
that.
year Man City kind of won the title with a few weeks to go or a few
They
matches
won it.
left.
They won it on the last game.
Oh, they did in the end
Do you
over
remember
the.
it was Liverpool? If Liverpool won and Aston, because so City were playing Aston Villa, and then City were losing at one point. Philippe Coutinho scored two goals, and then Liverpool thought they were winning, and
Oh
obviously,
yeah, because that was the
no,
famous thing of the Mo Salah looking to the crowd and the guy was saying
yeah,
3-2, and oh yeah, I do remember.
yeah,
See, I
yeah,
was a little more focused on the relegation of last the last day last year where the
yeah.
Swedes had to get safety on it, but completely.
Yeah, they were 2-0 up, and then City score three goals in the space of 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. They just turned into a other gear, which we
It was
that's the thing with
absolutely
City is
insane.
they are just such a talented team. And compared
Mm,
to this Arsenal team, I feel like Arsenal are one or two key players away from really
yeah.
being a title contender. Like you put Marcus Rashford on that Arsenal side this year, I think they could be running away with
Yeah.
the title themselves, but just lack.
Martinez's a good player, but he's not a Sadio Mane, he's not a Marcus Rashford, and that's what you need to compete with City at this level.
Absolutely, but we'll move on to from that match, which was very big in the midweek and funny that it was middle of Champions League as well. I think more people were probably watching that one than the two Champions League matches. I know we both were, but it's kind of surrounding Arsenal. Their game against Brentford, they probably should have won that because of a
Mm,
VAR decision. However, VAR didn't draw the line, and it
which is
was
wild.
not ruled offside on Tomine's goal, which I don't understand how they don't do that, considering there's so much on VAR and it's so much focus, and the refereeing is so reliant on that to an extent now. But that was bad, and now the video assistant referee Lee Mason is no longer part of the Premier League officiating.
Yeah.
He is gone. So, what do
But I
you?
think Howard Webb, the new guy, is really on it now. I think he must be sick of the fuck VAR chants. I know a lot of English fans hate it. I still believe in the system. I still like it. I think he gets most of the systems right. The reason why, like, I think we get a lot more right than we used to. I think VAR is down to that. I think the reason why people get so wound up about VAR is when it makes a mistake, this mistake is really amplified. Um, because like back in the day, if you missed something like that was that. Whereas now, like you've got the technology, you're looking over it, so everyone can see the referee make a mistake in real time and like go over it. You can sort of excuse referees like 10 years ago, oh maybe he didn't see it, or like mistakes felt less egregious back then.
Mhm.
So like even though there are definitely less mistakes now, the mistakes feel worse, which is why so many people get so wound up about it. But I still like the system. I think Howard Webb is going to try really. Like I think there is no excuse for the mistakes that VAR made on the weekend. As
Yeah.
I said, I still like the system, but I like Howard Webb sort of like cleaning house a bit.
Yeah, we can't be making they can't be making these mistakes, especially when it involves the title race as much as it did, but
Yeah.
clearly does. My one issue with VAR, like I'm understanding it and I get how it works and how it helps out a ton, but I just think it's still so inconsistent at times in terms, especially the offside ruling. But that's
Yeah, I think they
that's
have
bound to
gotten
be.
better. It feels like it's more automated now. They just put the thing, and like there are times where his arm was his wrist was just over it, but I mean that is the literal rule.
Technically,
So I
that
don't
is
really know how
offside.
we.
So
Yeah, I don't really know how we. I guess we have to have like that corridor of uncertainty, where it's like okay, well maybe if it's like a few inches over, we don't count it, but.
yeah,
I don't
it's
know what the ideal situation is there. I think
no,
Arsene Wenger said something like you have to give like some leeway because of like uncertainty with the cameras as well, but I don't know.
yeah, absolutely. I guess my other big issue with VAR is like it seems like referees are so much less competent now in terms of actually officiating the match. Seems like they're so much more reliant on VAR. I know, especially when it's like you play the ball through, guy is clearly offside, but they let the play keep going. What's the point of that? I
Yeah, it has to
the
be a lot
techniques
more
might be like
marginal.
that, but it's like I've seen times where the guy's offside by about 2 feet, yard even, and it's just, oh no, we're keeping the flag down. Eventually, I'm thinking someone's going to get hurt because they're going to keep
Yeah.
playing, and there's going to be a bad tackle, and someone will get injured from that, and then they'll be back and like, oh, he should have been offside. We should have blown the whistle immediately, but now he's hurt, and
Yeah, I think it's hard to tell in real time. I think they probably should, if it's egregious, just blow the whistle there and then. I think that's what they're supposed to do. Is if the only time is if they're uncertain. I think that should be it. If they're not 100% sure it's offside, then maybe let it play because there's always that chance that it gets called back and it wasn't offside, and then your team's like,
yeah,
our player would have been through. We could have scored a goal.
yeah,
So I don't know. It's not always easy, but
no,
I think the technology for the most part works. It just needs. It's not the technology's fault. I think as well as when people say fuck VAR,
yeah.
it's like
It's
the
the
officials using
user,
it,
yeah, it's
and
user
they just
error, not
yeah
necessarily that technology.
yeah
But I don't know. It's just an interesting thing because it's just still so new, and they're still making such changes and trying to figure out
yeah
everything perfectly. And just makes it interesting, and it's just kind of something we wouldn't have seen 10 years ago. But it's changing the
yeah.
game completely. I mean, you see it in the World Cup and all the big leagues around Europe and around the world. But what other news have we seen this week? Is there anything you've seen? We've kind of got a bit of that Man U
Yeah.
ownership battle going on, but
I don't want to think about that right now.
didn't you say that the deadline was supposed to be today
So
for
the deadline is today,
is
and
today?
a spokesman for the Qatari family or something like that. I can't remember what BBC's the language. So the chairman of one of Qatar's biggest banks confirmed that they put a bid in for Manchester United. Um, I don't think that. I think that was the only thing I saw this week that was particularly interesting. Other than oh, the guy who attacked Ramsdale got charged.
Oh, he did. Oh,
Yeah, he's got
that's
charged.
good, rightfully so.
Yeah, that was
You can't go punching or kicking players, even if it is Tottenham Arsenal. It still just
It
can't be
was
doing
ridiculous.
that.
It was a ridiculous video as well. I don't know if you saw it. The guy has a balaclava on, and then he goes back to his seat and he takes the balaclava off. Like the cameras don't stop working the minute you leave. And I think Sky
Yeah,
Sports followed him around. Like they did a segment where they followed the guy around as he was sitting down. You can't sort of blend in after. The cameras are still pretty good at the stadiums.
yeah. In this era of technology and everything being caught on camera one way or another, it's crazy to think that you just by walking away into a crowd, you're not going to be seeing. And I don't know.
Stupid.
Yeah, what a mess that was. But good thing he got charged, I guess. I don't know what the full penalty is for him, but
Yeah.
it's just wild stuff. Now let's move into this week's action. There are some exciting matches. We'll start with our match of the week, which Newcastle Liverpool. Honestly, this could be a big momentum swing for Liverpool. If they're
Yeah.
able to get a win, they'll be what I believe 6 points back of Newcastle for that fourth
Yeah.
Champions League spot with a
Yeah.
match in hand. So
So let's see, what is it at Anfield or is that at
It
St
is.
James's Park?
Oh,
Oh, it's at St James's Park.
yeah,
Okay, that's interesting. Um, yeah, well, looking at Newcastle's recent form, they've drawn 4 of their last 5 games. They're still not the most explosive team going forward. But it's just they've only conceded 13 goals this season. That's wild to me.
yeah.
Um,
That's,
like that's absolutely wild. Um, they're a stubborn team to break down. Sven Botman, couldn't remember his name the other day, but it came to me just now. Sven Botman has been one of the signings of the season. Kieran Tripp has been fantastic. Um, I just wonder how the match dynamics are going to go. I wonder how much control Liverpool are going to, because usually these games where they get battered, they have most of the possession, they have the control, but they just get absolutely done on the counter attack. And it looked like it could start that way versus Everton on Monday as well. Everton started strongly. Um, they had a few chances. Like Ellis Sims, a guy they brought up from the Championship, had a good chance at one point, but that was the only thing he did all game. But then they got a transition opportunity. Jordan Pickford had a howler. I still think they probably would have scored regardless, but it was still pretty embarrassing watching him do that. Stefan Bajcetic had a good game. And then I felt like after that goal, the momentum just changed and Everton players just completely dropped. Everton has like a weird juju around Anfield. They just cannot win at Anfield.
no,
Um,
I
and
really can't.
it was wild, So I'm not sure how much that game was Liverpool like declaring their back or Everton just really collapsing after, because Liverpool looked good. They are forcing mistakes from Everton plans. They're getting the ball high up the pitch. They were looking threatening. Mo Salah looked threatening, which is always a good sign for Liverpool fans.
Mm.
But I don't know. I'm not sure how much that game really signaled. This game is really important for Liverpool's season and just seeing where they are now again, because VVD is going to be back. Diogo Jota is back. Luis Diaz won't be back, but he's on his way back. Like the cavalry is coming.
They are returning at long last. So,
Yeah,
but
I'm
I
just
mean,
fascinated how this game's going to go.
yeah, because it really could. And I mean, we talked about Arsenal dropping points. Newcastle have been dropping points like crazy since the turn of the new year,
Yeah.
including their last match of 2022. So their last 6 Premier League matches, they've 1 win and 5 draws.
Mm.
You win even 4 of those that are draws and a couple nil-nils, couple 1-alls. It's not like they're playing the best of teams. They drew with Leeds,
Yeah,
drew
it's
with
like
Arsenal, drew
dross.
drew with Palace, drew West Ham and Bournemouth. There
Like,
are 4 that you should be winning there. And if they had, we would be saying Newcastle are top of the league at the moment.
Bournemouth had 5 shots on targets against Newcastle. Now, I'll admit, Bournemouth have actually,
They've,
it's going to sound like an odd thing to say, have looked a lot better recently.
they
And
did a lot in that window.
their new signings have really helped them. But like, as a top 4 seed, like Bournemouth having 4 shots on target, West Ham as well. Like, they only had the 1 shot on target, but they had more shots than Newcastle. Like, I don't know. It's not been great form recently.
No,
I
it has
wonder how.
not.
I
It's
wonder how much Anthony Gordon's been playing.
For me, it seems like Arsenal or Newcastle's maybe focusing on the EFL Cup a little bit more,
Yeah.
and that might play a role into it. They've had 2 league cup matches in this time, an FA Cup match, which they lost to Sheffield Wednesday, which that's another bad loss right there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
maybe
Jeez.
Wednesday. Yeah, that was bad. 2-1 they lost at Wednesday, but this is a team that I personally didn't think would be as good as they are right away.
No.
I thought it would take like 3 years, but the fact that they could really realistically be at top of the table at the moment is impressive, and I think Newcastle is. I could see a very much like a City-esque thing happen there, where they end up winning the league a couple times in a 4 or 5 year stretch. But
Yeah, Eddie Howe's really done wonders, because if you look at the actual like
brilliant,
depth they have, like some of the players they have on the bench, like I don't know, Jamal Lewis, Matt Ritchie,
it's
Paul Dummett,
it's nothing
Lewis. I don't
special,
even know
but
who Lewis Miley is. Ryan Fraser. Like these guys are not top 4 quality players. The only one on their bench who might be top 4 quality is what Anthony Gordon, maybe Jacob Murphy. Like
yeah.
their depth is actually pretty poor.
I mean,
They're still starting Sean.
Callum Wilson's been out for a bit, and
Yeah,
but even he's like he'll make a difference, but it's not that much of a difference. Doesn't add that
right. It
much.
lets them have like Isaac on the bench, I guess, to give them a
Yeah,
boost. But they're still starting Sean Longstaff. Like he's doing some unbelievable things with
yeah.
what he has.
No,
I think
absolutely.
I think they're an incredibly annoying team to play against. Um, Again, I'm not sure. I reckon they could maybe get them on the counter attack. I think Callum Wilson was important for how they play. Um, but I'm just fascinated. Are it might be one of those things where they get them with the set pieces, get Dan Burn on the end of a set piece.
Absolutely.
Um, I'm just fascinated. I hope it's an end to end game. I'm not sure if Newcastle will. I think they'll just absorb a lot of pressure. Um,
I mean, that's what they did last time. The two played back in, what was it, August. Liverpool won 2-1. I know very different teams now from that, but Liverpool had 72% possession to Newcastle's 28. So they did
yeah.
exactly what you were just saying. They just sit back and let Liverpool bring on that pressure, and
Mm,
eventually they cracked. Gave up
mm.
Newcastle was 1-0 up, gave up a 61st minute goal to Firmino, then gave up a 98th minute winner to
Jeez.
Carvalho, which
Jesus.
they're going to want to get that back because, first of all, 8 minutes of injury time is quite a bit for a
Yeah.
pre-league match. We saw that in the
Yeah.
World Cup where it was 10, 15 minutes at times, and that was just
Yeah.
absurd. But I think
I wonder.
Newcastle will be trying to get this
Yeah.
one back and honestly end their losing streak against Liverpool or
I
their
wonder. I
win this
wonder. I
streak.
wonder one. I wonder who plays. So I didn't mean to interrupt. I wonder
Oh, you're
who
good.
plays for Liverpool's midfield because they had
Salah,
Harvey Elliott, Fabinho,
yeah,
and Henderson last
yeah.
time, but I'm not sure about the athleticism of that midfield anymore. If I'm honest, Harvey Elliott, I think Klopp wants to play him more up front than in midfield, and I'm
It's
not sure. I'm not. I'm, I'm
weird.
not. I'm not sure who they're going to play because they really struggle in transitions. Liverpool, as you know, I've been beating this drum for ages. They've really struggled against transitional sides because they push up and then their players can't cover the ground anymore, and they can't press as high. Their pressing is just objectively worse, so they can exert less control of the game. Um, so I'm just curious, like, are they going to play Stefan Bajcetic? Is Fabinho going to start? Is Henderson going to start? That's another interesting one to me. I wonder how their midfield is because their midfield fared quite well. Again, Everton are not the most, you know, they're a pretty direct team. They're not going to be like team that plays up from the back. That you're not going to get too many opportunities to press. Um, I wonder how they deal with, and they didn't have DCL as well, so they're far less threatening in transition. So I wonder how Liverpool midfield deals with. I don't know. Saint Maximan's probably going to play. Um,
You would think.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
Almiron.
yeah.
I
Looking
wonder
at
how they deal
looking
with
at the
that.
live score predicted lineups for it, they have Stefan Bajic, Fabinho, and Jordan Henderson in that midfield for
Yeah,
Liverpool, and
I'm
that
curious.
just doesn't give me a ton of faith in that
Yeah,
midfield. Like, I mean, I think
Bajcetic has been good. I've been impressed with him. Fabinho, I think, has been
he's
fine this season.
yeah,
Henderson has been ooh.
he's
So I
been
wonder how
very not great,
yeah,
but
yeah.
this will be a fun one to watch. What is your prediction for this one?
Mm, I'll go 1-1.
1-1.
I think VVD coming back shores up Liverpool at the back because Joe Gomez as well has been. Oh, he's not been good this
Yeah.
season. He's not inspired me with confidence at all.
Um, get to that back four of Andy Robertson, VVD, Matip, and Alexander Arnold, as well as Allison in net. That's been one of the best defenses and goalkeeping combos in the world in the last few years.
Yeah,
And just
Kanate as well. I think would be fantastic. I think he's not going to be back yet, but when he comes back, he'll
yeah,
be a really big boost for Liverpool. He is fantastic.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this Liverpool team is still very good. I
Mm.
do think they actually I think they'll lose this one. I think they
You
will
think
find
they'll
a way to
lose?
drop points. I'm just going to go a little different. I think Anthony Gordon gets his goal for
Anthony Gordon.
Newcastle somehow, some way. Bold prediction, but I'm going to go same score as the first one, but opposite way. Newcastle 2-1.
Okay.
It's gonna be a fun one. This is the late game on Saturday, so 11:30 or 12:30 Eastern time, 9:30 Pacific. So it's going to be one that everyone can be up for and up and watching as they should be because this is an important match for not just
Yeah.
necessarily the European spots, but kind of just for to see where both teams are and for
Yeah.
Newcastle to kind of keep going or Liverpool to get back on their momentum. But
Yeah, because Brighton and will start creeping up on them if Newcastle.
oh
I'd
yeah,
love it if Brighton made the Champions
oh,
League.
could you imagine Brighton in the
Yeah,
Champions League? They're 6 points back with a match in hand. Brighton.
yeah. Newcastle drop this game. Brighton win tomorrow. They're only 3 points back with a game in hand. That'd
Yeah,
be That'd be wild.
Could you imagine seeing? Who would have thought Brighton out of all teams in the
Yeah,
Champions League? Like
that'd be.
Newcastle, we were kind of expecting them to get better and maybe squeak into Europa League or something this year. Even Champions League's kind of over exceeding, but Brighton, and realistically, Fulham's not out of it. They have played an extra two more matches than Brighton, one more than Newcastle, but they're right on that fringe as well of
I'm not sure if I'm
getting
moved
a
enough by
European
Fulham.
spot. No, I don't think they will do much
Yeah,
either, but it's just there that they could.
yeah,
But we'll move on to some of these other matches on that Saturday. We'll start with Arsenal and Aston Villa. What are you thinking of that one? Because I think Arsenal just need to really bounce back after
yeah.
these rough couple weeks.
I think with these ones, it's going to be an annoying team to play again. Well, I will say, in fairness, that Aston Villa don't have Tyrone Mings, and I saw a stat
Mm.
that Aston Villa have only won one game when out of 13 when Tyrone Mings hasn't been playing. So
Oh,
Tyrone Mings is very important for how Aston Villa marshal their defense. They don't have Diego Carlos; he's injured as well, but I think he's coming back soon. But Aston Villa have fundamentally been quite an inconsistent team. Unai Emery, as I said before, is a lot better at coaching these out of possession defensive structures than Steven Gerrard was. So they're going to be more solid than they were before. And they're going to be a solidly mid-table side this season. I'm not, I wouldn't be worried about relegation. I don't think they've got the quality. I just think they're too inconsistent. I think Leon Bailey's too inconsistent. Emi Buendia is fantastic, but he doesn't always, he doesn't always have the sort of outlets to pass to. They haven't really been able to properly replace Jack Grealish, which is, it was always going to be hard to placing him out of that talent. I think Arsenal really have to win this game. They really, really have to win this game away at Villa Park as well. It's not going to be it's going to be a hostile atmosphere. Villa would love to play spoiler. Unai Emery, especially, that's what Arsenal did to him.
Club.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd love to get one over his former club. He's going to play some terrible low block, maybe even a mid block. I think that the solution is to play a mid block against Arsenal. They're going to be tired as well. They're going to have to rotate a bit because they've had just a grueling game against City and a grueling game against Brentford. Both of whom are pretty hard teams to play. They're going to be really mentally and physically exhausted, and they're going to. This is like. This is like a cliche. This is like how you decide whether you're a champion or not. Like, do you have the mental energy to sort of go and play against Unai Emery's sort of wicked mid block and deal with Ollie Watkins, Emi Buendia, and Leon Bailey on the counter? Now, I don't think that is a particularly fearsome attacking trio. I rate Ollie Watkins a lot, and Emi Buendia's quality. Leon Bailey, as I said, is pretty inconsistent. Not much production.
Not at all. He's kind of been a little bit of a disappointment since coming over to Aston Villa, but
Yeah.
still love using him on FIFA. One of the fun guys to play with because he's just so pacey. But this isn't FIFA. This is the real world of football.
Yeah.
And I mean, the question for me around Arsenal is like, how is Thomas Partey going to be? Is he going to be healthy enough to play?
I think he's out.
I think that was a big loss against Man City because he's just been consistent in that midfield. I know some of my Arsenal friends, they were like really bummed that he wasn't playing, especially because it was such a last minute decision that they think, oh, maybe we wouldn't have necessarily won the match, but we definitely could have gotten a point from it had he been playing because he just would have calmed everybody down in that.
I don't know. I think Jorginho was a good signing. I think Jorginho was what they need, was like very good in that game, and I don't know what Partey could have done differently to have stopped. He couldn't have sort of possessed Gabriel and Zinchenko and Tomiyasu to not make boneheaded defensive decisions.
That's fair. That's a good point.
I don't know. I think Jorginho has been a great signing. I think he's going to be great again against Aston Villa. It's just one of those annoying teams for Arsenal to have to play. It's one of those things where you could really easily see them like conceding a late header or something stupid like that, or Lucas Digne to 100%. And I think if they win, that's remarkable resilience to turn around a losing streak and fair play to them. And then if they win, I think they've really shown their sort of resolve and the ability to keep up with City. If they lose, I think their mental is going to be completely gone.
No, I was about to say, do you think this is a must-win for Arsenal if they're for their title hopes alive?
I know there's 15 games left in the season. I think people are very quick to forget that City dropped a game against Tottenham of all teams about two game weeks ago, and we were all ruling them out. But I think City's just going to hit a stride, and Arsenal need to keep pace. And losing to like the likes of Aston Villa.
That'd
You
just be a
just can't be doing that.
nail in the coffin almost. It's
You
just
can't be
so
doing that.
demoralizing as well.
Yeah,
But I
it'd be
don't know.
killer.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I am going to lean towards Arsenal in this. I think they'll get it done. I'll go 1-0 in this. I think somehow there'll be the defense will be like, they'll be ready for this match after
Mm.
making some huge mistakes that cost them against Man City. But
Yeah.
what's your prediction on this one?
No, I back Arteta to rally the troops, but just for my friend Ben, I think I'll say a 1-1 draw, last minute Ollie Watkins,
Oh,
last minute Ollie Watkins goal. I'm not sure if that is going to happen, but just I'm going to
it
speak it
could.
into existence.
Yeah,
It could
exactly.
happen.
But now moving forward, Brentford Crystal Palace. This one's a little interesting because I mean Brentford is in eighth with 34 points, just a point really back of that sixth place Europa or Conference League spot, which that'd be impressive to see the Bees make it up there.
I'd love that. I think Crystal Palace have been pretty bad form. They've had to play a lot more sort of like passive this season. There's been a lot of nil-nil draws recently. I think they got smacked a few times around sort of Boxing Day. And they've really tried to sort of tone it back a bit. Their midfield, as I said, Conor Gallagher's a big miss. They're still like for the budget, and they're still like doing fine. Like what 3 points from the last 5 games has been a pretty bad run of form, but before that they were doing fine. I don't know. I think Palace are just one of those teams. They look a bit sluggish going forward. They need to figure it out. Maybe Lokonga is the solution to their midfield woes. Like he was an unbelievable wonder kid when he joined Arsenal. Um, I'm just not convinced, particularly by their team right now. Um, they're not a team that would scare me. I think Brentford are in flying form. They've got, one of the best strikers in the league, and Ivan Toney. They've got unbelievable structure. They don't lose games. Once they're in control of games, they just don't lose them. Thomas Frank has coached them excellently.
They just find ways to
Yeah.
grind out victories, which I think they'll have to do again this weekend. But
Yeah, I could see this one just being like a 1-0 or like a 2-0 win. Like, Ivan Toney goal and a goal from a corner. I see something like that happening.
yeah, I could see it being like an early goal or first half goal. Then they kind of just sit back, play defensive, and end up catching Palace on the counter attack somewhere
Mm.
late in the match. But
I don't even
I
think
do,
Palace have the midfield dynamism to like be able to control a game. I think it'll be one of those games where Brentford just control the ball a lot. Palace get the odd chance, but but yeah, I can see Brentford going up 1-0 early and just being super professional, controlling the game. Their keeper is amazing as well. I would love to hear at my club.
yeah,
Um, I
I'm,
can't see Palace like scoring.
no, absolutely. I mean, I'm just looking at their midfield from their last match against Brighton. Jordan Ayew, Mikel Olise, Jeffrey Schlupp, Will Hughes, and Umar Dukure. That's not a great midfield in my opinion, but
They need
I'm
they
gonna
need they
back the
need
bees here.
Yeah, they need Lokonga or Amhadara to start showing glimpses. Otherwise, they're going to be in for a tough. They're going to be a mid-table side, but I don't think they get dragged into a relegation scrap. But it's not going to be a fun season for Palace fans. I don't think.
No, it's not, and all the pressure I think is on more on Palace at the moment than it is Brentford. But Brentford are playing in an interesting role right now, and that moves us into our next match. Assuming your prediction for that first one was 2-0, though.
Yeah, yeah,
Going with you. All right, likewise. But Brighton and Fulham, all three of those teams have been exceeding. Brighton, Fulham, and Brentford sitting 6, 7, 8 with Brighton, Fulham, and Brentford in that order. Fulham and Brighton could be an interesting one because they're both level on points. Brighton's played 2 less matches, but I'm back. I just don't see Fulham really giving them all that trouble. I do think Brighton's a
yeah.
much more improved team, as you said, under Grandpa or from
I
what
think
Graham Potter left them.
I think Fulham has been struggling to score goals recently, and I mean they have played some pretty good sides. To be fair, Newcastle, Tottenham, Chelsea's not an easy run of form. Um, and they did scrape out a good win against Nottingham Forest. I don't know. I'm just not that convinced by them as a side. I think they're massively overperforming their XG. They've got good defense. Willian has sort of run it back and is looking like the prime William at old. Obviously, Mitrovic, is fantastic.
But he hasn't scored it since the 3rd of January when Fulham won 1-0
Yeah,
against Leicester. So he needs to
yeah,
find his scoring boots again
yeah,
because
that's
when he
true.
is on form, I'd say he's one of the better strikers in the Premier League, or one of the true
Yeah,
number nines up top. Big
yeah,
body, he's very physical, gets to those headers,
finisher.
can cause issues, and he's just a natural finisher, natural goal
Yeah,
scorer.
yeah. He. I think Brighton will probably just control the game. I could see maybe Fulham springing some counter attacks, but it's at home. It's at Amex as well. I don't think Brighton have necessarily been, wowed recently. What was it like a 1-1 draw against a very sluggish Crystal Palace side? I mean, to be fair, I think Brighton had a goal pretty wrongfully disallowed.
Yeah,
Drawing with Leicester, only beating Bournemouth 1-0. These aren't like unbelievable results or anything. They did beat
not at
Liverpool
all.
twice in the past month. Well, just over a month was the first game. Um, I don't know. I'm curious. I think there's issues with Caicedo as well. He was one of their best players this season,
Mm.
and obviously very publicly demanded, you know,
A transfer.
yeah, he very publicly demanded a transfer. And I don't know how that's going to play into effect. I don't know if he's going to. I don't. Did he play the last game? Um,
I'm actually not certain. Again, he did. He did start and played all 90 minutes against Palace.
Okay,
So,
so maybe that'll be fine again. I don't know how Deserby. I trust Deserby. If you, I don't. There's this video on Twitter where they do like this big bird's eye view of their build up. Their build up play is unbelievable for a manager who's only been there for like 4 months
oh
or
yeah,
however. He joined in like October, so 4 or 5 months. The way the players just seem to sort of know where the other one's going to be, sort of automatically. These automisms, I think they're called, have been trained so well. I rate him so much as a coach. I think they're going to be just fine for the season. I think Fulham are an annoying side to play against. They don't concede many goals. It's going to be tough to score against them. Um, that Palhinha chap is such a good defensive
yes
midfielder.
he
He's such a
is.
nuisance to play against. Just gets in the way, disrupts attacks. Lallana might be a big loss. He's out for a few months. Um, Danny Welbeck's out. Not sure how much that's going
Yeah,
to affect.
yeah. I still find it
Um,
wild that he's one still playing and still playing Brighton of all places.
hmm. I personally think Brighton are going to be fine. Fulham's an annoying side. I can see Brighton winning like 1-0. Matoma wonder goal on like the 60th minute or something like that.
Yeah, I could see something like that. But I mean, you did mention De Zerbi, their manager. Since he's come into play or into the lead, they have scored the fourth most goals in the Premier League with 28. So
Hmm.
they are finding ways to score. I do think they'll beat Fulham. I think they'll be a little too much. Their defense will hold up against Fulham's lack of scoring as of late, and I'll go 2 on the fence of 2-1 or 2-0 to Brighton, but
Hmm.
we'll go 2-0. Just
2-0. Okay.
why not? Yeah. And your prediction for that one?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I thought I said it.
No, you're all
1-0.
oh, yeah. 1-0.
1-0 Brighton.
Yeah, sorry, I may have misheard it. But now moving into kind of sort of the relegation teams here. Chelsea versus Southampton. Southampton have looked dreadful, and they still don't have a manager. I think they were talking to former Leeds manager Jesse Marsh, and he
Yeah.
wanted a long contract. They only offered him the end of the season one, so that didn't happen. Now it sounds like they're not even going to get a manager for the rest of the year. Just let the caretakers take over. That's
Yeah.
going to be an interesting one against a Chelsea team that has just looked terrible as of late.
Yeah. I think, you know, there's always a chance when Southampton signed a 6-7 striker. There's always a chance he could stick a rogue ball up into the box. You can, get on the end of that. And also, like, to be fair, I think Suleimana, the guy they made their record signing, is quite a good player as well. But I don't know. I think they're just such a mess right now. I think a good manager could potentially get the best out of this side. I think Lavia is a great talent. They had this other centre back, something like Bella Kotchap, but I think he's injured. But they're both very young, and you can't be relying on players that young. But that loss versus Wolves was really mentally weak. It should have been a lot better than that. 10 men up with like for most of the game and not being able to score another goal is really poor. I think there might be a new manager bounce because I wonder how much of their inability to just win games was based on the fact they had a manager who was constantly causing controversy, constantly making it all about him. Um, not sure. I'd be interested to see to what extent that was. If there's one team in the top half you wouldn't mind playing right now, it's Chelsea. They can't seem to finish to save their life. They saw a stat like they scored 6 goals from an XG of 16. Now, for most good sides, you'd probably expect them to score about 18 to 20 goals from that. They
Yeah,
are massively
that's
performing.
not good at all.
So I'm curious if that's like a long-term issue, because Potter also had that issue with Brighton for a long time, or if that's just unlucky and they're going to smack 5 past Southampton. I'm not sure. Um, It'll be
Well,
an interesting one regardless. I
yeah,
think I think Chelsea should probably come away with like a 1-0 win, but we'll see.
yeah, you would think so, but I'm gonna just put this out there because this could be a historic match for Southampton. If they do beat Chelsea, it'll be the first time they've ever had a Premier League double over Chelsea because they beat them
Wow.
2-1 back in, was
Wow.
it like September, October,
I
August,
didn't
last
I
weekend
didn't
of
even know
August.
they
They had
beat Chelsea back
beat
then.
Chelsea
Wow.
2-1 on August 30th with two first half goals, but completely different teams now. And that was
Yeah.
when Chelsea was still losing 3-0 to Leeds at the same time. So how the
Yeah.
teams have changed since then. But I do think, I want to say, I think Chelsea will get their goal scoring boots on this match, but
Mm.
there's been nothing to show me that that can actually happen. We saw it against Dortmund. They lose 1-0. Not really. They made tons of opportunities, just couldn't
Yeah.
finish.
I
I
wonder.
do. I think that'll change in this one. I think if there's a one match to get you going, get a team rolling,
Yeah.
it'll be one against Southampton, who
Yeah.
just
Literal
in
bottom of the
crisis mode
table.
at the moment. But
Yeah.
I'm
They've
gonna
conceded
go.
40 goals. Like,
Yeah,
if you
that's
can't score against them, you're not scoring against anyone.
no, absolutely. I think I'm gonna go 3-1 to Chelsea because I do think they will find their scoring boots. I'll give João Felix a goal and a couple others.
Yeah. Well, I did just transfer João Felix into my fantasy team, so I'd love for him to get a goal. Um, I don't know. I don't. I'm not convinced by the goal scorers. I wonder if Raheem Sterling comes back for this game. Maybe I'll give it a. I'll give it like a 2-0. I'll give it a 2-0.
Yeah,
Um,
I can very well though see this being like a 0-0, just one of the most
yeah.
boring matches of the
Yeah.
season where neither team does anything offensively, and it's
I back João Felix to look lively and
yeah.
do something for Chelsea. At the very least, he's looked exciting.
But yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we're staying on that relegation zone. Bournemouth versus Wolves, or technically Wolves versus Bournemouth at Wolverhampton. So Bournemouth are in trouble at the moment. They're another team that just hasn't looked good of late. They're sitting in 19th place, level on points with Everton, who's one spot ahead, whereas Wolves are kind of, they were wrapped into it and they're trying to escape that relegation battle, as you mentioned a bit ago. But what do you
I
think of
think
that match?
I think Bournemouth, honestly, they had their best performance of the season against Newcastle. Um, their new signings looks really like dangerous. They like Hamed Traore, mentioned him in the pod before. He was one of Serie A's most exciting sort of young players when they signed him. Dango Atora, Dominic Solanke coming back was a big one as well. It's an odd thing to say because it's Dominic Solanke, but they combined. They had nice little interchanges. They just looked dangerous. Um, I'm not. I think there was a times where they could overcomplicate it a bit and get too, sort of then just take the bloody shot. But like I don't know, they've got some. I feel like they have some attacking threat now, which they just didn't have at all. I think their top scorer in the league in the before they signed anyone during the January transfer window had like 4 or 5 goals. Maybe it was 6 goals, something stupid like that. They weren't scoring goals. Um, they've still got a bit of a leaky defense. They did well to keep Newcastle to 1 goal, but hopefully that Ukrainian guy can come in and give that defense a lift. But yeah, I think Wolves are looking really good. I think Julian Lopetegui has really improved the way they press, their out of ball structure. I think their main issue, at one point, they'd only scored 9 goals coming into the transfer window. They've massively changed that. The signing, they signed the striker, what was his, Cunha from
Oh, yeah.
Atletico Madrid. He looks fantastic. I think Sarabia was a great signing. A coup getting him from PSG, unbelievable chance creator. Mario Lemina as well, really useful creator, progressor of the ball. They signed really good signings. I know Lemina got sent off. It was a ridiculous sending off, by the way. I don't know if you've seen the
I
sending
did
off
not.
against Southampton. He got sent off for running over to the referee, and it was like the most bizarre.
Oh,
Um,
Jesus.
Matthias Nunes as well. I think they could really make a push to like be solidly mid-table. Lopetegui really changed them. If I was a Wolves fan, I'd be ecstatic. They've made some really good signings for the future. They've won 3 of the last 5. Like, I really think they could be, you know, and like I don't want to rule Bournemouth out, but I think Wolves should probably take this game.
Yeah, one of those was a 3-0 win against Liverpool. But
Yeah.
my worry about Wolves is only one team has scored less goals than them this season, and that's Everton. So it's not like they've really been making a ton of chances and converting them, but then Bournemouth has just been pretty terrible as of late. Also, they haven't won in any of their last 7 matches. So last win was
Well,
against Everton.
I will
But
say recently Wolves have gotten a lot better at scoring
absolutely,
goals. I
yeah,
think definitely before the World Cup and like just after the World Cup they were pretty, but like putting 3 past Liverpool,
oh, that's impressive. No matter
that was
what
pretty
type of
good.
Liverpool team you're playing.
Yeah, I mean they played Liverpool like 3 times in a month and they scored 5 goals against them. Like
Yeah, that's
pretty good.
true. Yeah,
I back them
absolutely.
for that.
So, what's your
Um,
prediction for this one?
I think like 2-1, 2-1 Wolves. I think Bournemouth get a goal through their front three, but then Wolves just have too much quality.
Yeah, I'm going to take this as kind of my upset pick of the week. I think it'll either end up a draw or I think Bournemouth will win 1-0. They'll find a way to squeak one past and more just the nerves will kick in and they'll be motivated to get out of this relegation zone. But we'll move on to the last one of this relegation teams at the moment, which to me is the big one: Leeds versus or Everton versus Leeds. Leeds currently sitting in 17th place with 19 points. Everton in 18th with 18 points. Everton's that last team into the relegation zone. This one's a must win for both. I realistically think whoever loses this will go down. If there's a loser,
I think
I could see this being one of the most dire on a scoring aspect. But like we mentioned earlier, I think this will be a very physical match. Sean Dyke will have his players come in and kick the hell out of some of the Leeds players, and Leeds will do the exact same thing and kind of just come out and try and wind up the Everton fans and Everton players at home. And
yeah.
a little worried about this one because
I
this
did
is
just see DCL is out,
he is out,
which
which
is
that's
like
a big loss for
that's a
Everton, a
big
big
loss.
win for Leeds. But I don't know. This one's just I'm just nervous about this one because
Mate, I've been
neither of
pretty.
these neither of these teams realistically deserve to stay up, honestly. But it's going to be who is slightly better than the other.
Yeah, I think um at St James's Park as well, Everton are going to be such a nuisance to play against.
Yes,
Their 4-5-1 block, it was working. It worked wonders against Arsenal. It was working well against Liverpool before they sort of mentally imploded. Um, it's going to be tricky. What's your thought from the Leeds perspective? What do they need to do to sort of put themselves in the best position?
pray, hope for an incident that somehow we get away with it. We haven't Leeds hasn't won any of their last 9 matches in the Premier League. That is not good at all.
Yeah,
But I don't know. There just needs to be some magic or something needs to happen because it's not like we're playing poorly at all. We saw that against the 2 matches against Man U in this past week. It's just we're not converting our chances. It's once Patrick Bamford comes off, the entire press that Leeds does just falls apart. And Jack Harrison's been sometimes decent, sometimes really poor, and that's more often the case. I don't. I don't know. This one's going to be weird, and Leeds is such an unpredictable team. We can play really well one day against good teams, but then you play bad teams and we'll find a way to lose. Like look at the Forest match. Sure, Forest had made a ton of key signings, but seven shots on target, no goals. Part of that was how good Keylor Navas
Keylor
was,
Navas
which
masterclass.
his debut for Forest is against Leeds, and he plays like the Champions League winner we know him as and remember him as. But I just see this going as probably a 1-1 draw. I'll go that
1-1
way.
draw.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm gonna say something you won't like. I think it's gonna be a 1-0 draw. James Tarkowski scores a header, or
Yeah,
Connor Cody from a corner.
I can see that, and I mean, I'm just not convinced by the Leeds. So I mean, midfield and attack is good in my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of Weston McKennie so far. He's kind of seemed useless to an extent. He's had some decent moments, but nothing overly special. And sure, part of that's probably still getting used to it, but the defense is just not good. Max Wober's helped a ton. Robin Koch has been playing a bit better. But the fact that it's still Luke Ayling on the right and Junior Firpo on the left, I know we just re-signed Ayling for a few more years, but those two are just not Premier League caliber outside backs. And
Yeah.
if Pascal Strike was healthy, I'd be a lot more confident because you throw him at left back, even though he's natural center back. He's been playing superb there this season, and I don't know. Rodrigo out is not good. Luis Sinistera has been great when he's been playing, but he's once again injured. So that's another
You got another
attacking
great
option
name in
gone.
Credencio Somerville.
Yeah,
Absolutely
Somerville.
wonderful.
Him and Crescencio Somerville and Willie Nunto. Those two are going to be stars in the future, I think, somewhere. Once they leave Leeds, they'll both be international players, and I think
It just
they
feels
just
like
have such
Leeds have too much
pace to
talent
them. No,
to
I agree.
like
I think
be where they are.
No, I 100% agree. The players are there. I just think a lot of it was the poor management by Jesse Marsh, which has put us in this bad situation that we're now trying to dig ourselves out of, and we just can't at the moment. I would say if this had been at Ellen Road, I might lean towards maybe like a 1-0,
Mm,
2-1 win. But the fact that it is at Goodson
yeah.
Park, and we saw how important that crowd was for Everton last season in staying up, I think it'll be
Yeah.
a similar situation again this year.
Okay.
But we're
Well, I'm
looking at
going
a
1-0, 1-0
yeah,
Everton. So
I'm going 1-0.
sorry, mate.
So hopefully we're both wrong. Hopefully Leeds get the win, but I don't think either. But I'm not confident in that. We'll look at the last match of that Saturday. Kind of quick touch on this one because I think we're both going to go the same way. Nottingham Forest versus Man City. Sure, Forest have made all these good new signings, but at the end of the day, it is Man City, and they were coming off their biggest win of the season. So,
Mate, you know what I see in the future? Keylor Navas masterclass.
Keylor Navas masterclass and a penalty kick goal for him.
Mate, a penalty. Keylor Navas was a pen. That'd be
Yep.
wild.
Could
Man,
you
I remember when
imagine?
Edison used to take pens
Oh yeah,
for City
he
like
would
a few
he
years
would just
ago.
blast the ball, and I mean that's the way
Yeah,
to do it. Honestly, you just make sure it's
yeah.
on net, just power it through. But
Stick it top bins.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you look at you remember their fixture, the score of their fixture when last time they played in the
What was it
autumn?
like 5-0 or something like
Yeah,
that?
it was 6-0 City, and
Oh
sure that was
god.
in the Etihad. I just see it being similar. I think it'll be an Erling Haaland hat trick this week, and
Yeah.
it'll be a 4 or 5-0 win for Man City.
Yeah. Nothing Forest on the whipping boys they once were. Like,
No,
you know,
they're definitely not, but I just think
they're
Man
just like a
City's been
lower
too
mid-table
confident.
side. Yeah, I think they're going to probably get rolled over. I'd love for Keylor Navas to pull something out of the bag. You know, they've got
Could you
some.
imagine?
Felipe, I don't know if you remember this, but Felipe actually got sent off the last time when he played for Atletico versus Man City because he was like tried to smack Jack Grealish or something like that. So maybe he'll sort of shit house his way, wind up from the City players, but it'll be an easy win for City.
I agree.
I'll be conservative and say 3-0.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
I
just
hope
going
I'm wrong
four.
though.
I'll go 4-0. I'm sure you do. But we'll move on to the other side of Manchester. Man United, your boys playing Leicester. What do you think of that one?
Well, my worry is we're a bit tired.
Mm.
Casemiro's going to have to play again. I think we give Fred a break.
I will say you've
Um,
played three very emotional matches in a row and high
yeah,
intense with the two leads and obviously Barcelona on midweek.
I wonder how we're going to be feeling after that Barcelona game because the consensus seemed to be like we should have won that game. We're fuming that we didn't win that game. I'm also curious to see who we start because I reckon Sabitzer has to start. Um, I reckon Casemiro will start. I wonder who we're going to start at the back as well. I'm just curious how the rotation is going to work. I can't see Bruno being rested. I can't see Rashford being rested. But just in terms of rotation because of how many games we've had to play. I wonder if we play a slightly rotated side. And I wouldn't want to risk that against a Leicester who's looked kind of resurgent recently.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, I've seen you're saying
Four goals,
Yeah.
both their last games. Tete's look great. Their new left back Christensen actually provides an option on the left. It lets Harvey Barnes. He unlocks Harvey Barnes. They can put Kelechi Iheanacho up front because they've got like an actual right winger now. They look a lot more competent going forward. And this is like the exact wrong time I wouldn't want to play. I wish we'd played them like a month ago when they were still getting smacked up by random
Oh yeah.
sides.
And I mean
Um,
this the scary thing to me is you mentioned their back-to-back 4-goal
yeah,
wins, but they played Tottenham in their one of their last match, and that was after Tottenham beat Man City 1-0.
yeah,
So they have all the confidence in the world. Then they go to
yeah.
Leicester and get battered 4-1 with what three first
Mm.
half goals.
My
And,
one like
and Leicester was
positive
down
is
in that match
yeah,
1-0 as well.
yeah, yeah. Like my one positive is that Lisandro Martinez is going to be back and rested. I think a lot of the issues Tottenham had that game were, just through playing the ball out from the back and pressing and getting caught out by Leicester's high intensity. I think Lisandro Martinez will help a lot. I think Sabitzer will help a lot with that. I don't know if Antony's going to be back, but Antony would help a lot with that as well. I think that's what we need. We need some. We're lacking a lot of our control, technically secure players. Let's see. I hope Anthony's back for that game and give a nice rest. It can't actually come on.
Is Casemiro suspended for this match?
Oh, he might be. No, yes, he will. He
It looks
will
like
be.
he is because of a straight
Oh
red
fuck.
card. So
Yeah,
that's
I
a
forgot he was
huge
still
loss
out.
for you guys.
Yeah, he's still going to be out for this game. Look, the fact we're at Old Trafford, I trust Ten Hag to have something sorted. We've been in such good form recently that I trust Ten Hag. But I don't know. Fred can be great in some games, but these sort of games are the ones he's really not very good. I would honestly rather have Scott McTominay.
I was just gonna say, like Fred against Leeds in that first match was kind of what you're talking about, the bad side of him, where he should be playing better against a lower class of opponent, but just it didn't click for him.
Yeah, he's just not very. He's a bit too much of a chaotic player. He's unbelievable. You could see the job he did on Frankie De Jong. He was unbelievable at harassing him, tracking back, winning the ball high up the pitch. He's really good for this count when we want to play, kick the ball long and counter press. He's really good, which is like a very interesting tactical evolution that a lot of teams now do go for. Even City went for that as well. Kick the ball long to Haaland and counter press. We did that a lot, and with Weghorst and Fred pressing, it worked really well. But in these like games where we want more control, he can be a bit chaotic. And I'm not sure that's what we need in a game against Leicester when they're going to be pressing high. They've got people who can hit us on the break. They're still a bit defensively suspect. I back us to score, but I'm just worried. I don't want Rashford to get injured as well. I think that's what happened to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He got played too much. He got injured. Just was never fully fit. So I hope we maybe give him a bit of a break, but I don't know. It's a tough game to play. I still think we win, but it's just one of those annoying games.
Yeah. So what's your prediction for this one?
Oh, I'll go 2-1.
2-1. I can see that. I'll probably back you on that one because as much as I'd love to see Leicester get some sort of result, it kind of actually helps Leeds if they don't. Because sure, we might be 5 points back, but if Leeds manage to get a win and Leicester lose, that's a 2-point difference now, and so part of me doesn't like Man U to win just because, but in this instance, it might benefit. So I'm agreeing with you, 2-1. We just can touch on this last one very, very briefly because we're almost out of time here. Tottenham versus West Ham, another London derby. I like Tottenham in this one. They're so inconsistent, and I mean they've had two bad losses in a row, and I guess Conte is still in
Italy. He's not coming back, but maybe that's a blessing in disguise. The last time Conte wasn't there, they won 1-0 against City. Yeah, I love saying City. That's what the guy. What's his name? And what's his name? The guy who's a Moise Fellaini. That guy. He said it like that. It's a real. It's a real Manchester way of saying it. I find it. I love it. Yeah, look, I think Tottenham still have quality. I wouldn't start Son in this game. I'd probably start Richarlison and Danjuma, or Richarlison and Kulusevski. West Ham are really struggling right now. I can't remember what their last game was. I think it was a draw versus Chelsea. And draw
they drawn Chelsea, Newcastle their last two, which aren't bad results, but
I think they are underperforming a bit. I could see them. I would like for them personally to go on a bit of a run. I think they are definitely better than their current record. But I don't know. It just seems like a lot of their players, as I've mentioned before, have regressed. They haven't really recruited properly. Or the players they have brought in, they haven't quite been at the level people expected, or they haven't played. I don't know. I think it's probably going to be a Tottenham 2-1, especially at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I wouldn't mind if West Ham did United a favour and took points off Tottenham.
I'd rather it be the other way and Tottenham do Leeds a favour and batter West Ham.
Yeah, look, I think both these sides. It's going to be such a weird midfield battle because both these sides, Tottenham struggled this season to either retaining the ball. If they can retain the ball, they're creatively sort of inert. West Ham, some of their midfielders have really taken a step back. Lucas Paqueta hasn't been the player many West Ham fans wanted him to be quite yet.
No, but
I want to see who actually dominates the ball. I reckon Tottenham will win this. They've got better quality players, but
yeah, I'm going to
we'll
go with
see.
you. I think Tottenham win, but I think it's 1-0. I
Yeah,
think Kane will get a penalty or something like that. Find a way and just to score and make it that the difference, and they will win that
yeah.
London Derby. But that's kind of all the time we have for you guys. So thanks for watching once again. This second episode of It's Called Football. Stay tuned in because we'll be here every week throughout the rest of this Premier League season. Check out all of our other stuff. Like I mentioned, we did the daily show for Vendetta Sports Media yesterday on their YouTube page. This will be up on the Vendetta Sports Media podcast page on YouTube. But check out our stories as well. I know Will's been writing a decent amount about the Premier League and about football in general. So check out that stuff. Reach out to him on Twitter at Will Scott Sports, LLT. Reach out to me on Twitter at JerryF007. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.